Hi, I'm Dan from Buildxact. This video is going to go through the account setup for a new account and everything you need to know. At the start of the video, we're going to go through things that are pretty much relevant to any user on any account. And as we go through, we'll get a bit more specific to users on the Pro plan and the Teams plan. But at the start, this will be for anyone on any plan. I'm going to go into the My Business area and business details. And this is probably the biggest part that you'll need to set up to make your account look like yours and make all your documents look pretty schmick. Basically, what we're doing here is any information about yourself, so logos, websites, etc., that we want to put onto your quotes or purchase orders or into your customer portal, it needs to live here. And as you need to change things down the track, this is where you'll also come to update that. So a quick summary of what's here. Business details, so all about you, your website, your licenses, etc. This registered email, currently you can't change that, so you'll need to contact our support team if you need to update that one. Contact details, so your address, bit of a no-brainer, that one. And then the other settings are things like just checking that your tax code is right and the tax rate is right, that your locale is set for where you are correctly, your time zone is correct, and that your invoice days, so the standard number of days that you allow on an invoice to someone before they have to pay it, that's set to what you'd like. On the right hand side, your standard logo, and pretty much everything below this big logo is for the customer portal. So small format logo, which is kind of like your profile picture logo. And if you don't have a separate one like I don't, just doesn't really matter, use the same one. The gallery is for previous work, and again, this goes into your customer portal. And the brand colors, this is just setting the colors that go into your customer portal. Moving on down this list, we've got a section for users. So depending on your plan, you may be able to add extra users to your account, and this is where it happens. At the end of the video, we'll be having a mention for those on the Teams plan and the user access control that they've got. Subscriptions, this is where you can access and manage and change the Buildxact subscription you've got, as well as being able to get some of the invoices out if you need them for your accounting. Business setup. As you go through Buildxact, you'll notice there's a lot of little drop downs around the place. And long story short, each of the drop downs equals one of these menus here. So for example, when you set up a new lead or new estimate, it'll ask you how the customer heard about you, for example, and this customer sources one is, this is what's filling out that drop-down menu. So you can customize any of these drop-downs and really make it feel a bit more like your software. Our only recommendation here is this supplier groups or contact groups one. We would recommend really not tinkering with this one too much, mainly because we use the suppliers and the contractors' name when we're integrating with people's accounting. And also, it's looking for this contractors and suppliers' name when we're sending out purchase orders to work out what type of terms and conditions to put on. With the contact groups, let's say you had a contractor who was a plumber, the best way to show that would be to say in contact groups, set contractors for that person. And under supplier types or contact types, this is where you can add all the different trades. So this is absolutely where you go to town putting all your different trades in. So just again, avoid putting too many changes on the supplier groups area. And as far as supplier types, this is where you should really go to town, adding all the different trades that you'll want to have in your address book. Awesome. Moving on forward, we're going to go into an estimate. And we're going to look at the presets that we've got. So you'll notice a lot of these cogs around the place. While this is not essential to set up straight away, it's very much worth a mention, and depending on who you are and how much you want to jump into it, you may want to set these up early on. Basically, you'll see under these cogs, save a preset, and in other places of the software, you might just see a button that says preset. does the same thing. This essentially allows you to preset the box of text here. So you'll notice this in terms and conditions, the quote body. There's some in the quote request area. There's some in the purchase orders area. There's some in the variations area. There's quite a few of these presets throughout the system. So do keep an eye out for those presets, and if you want to make them default for your system, go right ahead. Quick mention before we move on to the more Pro and Teams related functions, just on importing data into Buildxact. So we get quite a few questions about, hey, I've got existing price lists, existing estimates, or existing address books for my contacts or my clients. How do I bring all this in? And the short answer is that for estimates, clients, contacts, or catalogs, all of this can be loaded via Excel. And while we won't go through exactly how to do that now, what we will do is from this video, there'll be a link to each of those 4 items and how to load them. And that'll go through to one of our help articles, which will either have a video or a template on what the information needs to look like and instructions on how to load it in. But in a nutshell, if you have an Excel doc that has a price list in it, or an Excel doc that has your contacts or clients, or an Excel version of an old quote or quotes, you can load any of those into Buildxact. That pretty much brings us to the end of the items that apply to pretty much anyone. We're going to go into the jobs area now, so this is more moving into just Pro and Teams plans. I'm going to go to purchase orders and to this cog here. And we're managing the terms and conditions that go into the purchase orders. And when I'm doing this, there's really 2 types. So this relates very closely back to what we spoke about just a moment ago when we were looking at the different supplier types or contact types under the My Business area. And we were saying, hey, the one where we've got suppliers and contractors, really don't change that because we use it quite frequently. And this relates to that in that if I was to send a purchase order out and the contact I use, so let's say it's Bunnings, is set to be a supplier, which Bunnings would be, it will use these supplier terms and conditions, and you can change these. These are just our standard ones. If I was to send a purchase order out for Thomas Plumbing, and under the contacts area, Thomas Plumbing is set as a contractor, which he probably would be, these would be the standard terms and conditions, currently blank, that he would get. So worth a quick mention, definitely jump in here and customize these, set up the contractor ones if you want to use them, and that will mean that your purchase orders are really fitted out correctly with your correct conditions. Similarly, if I go into outgoing invoices, under the cog here, manage payment terms, this is the blurb that sits on the bottom of all invoices. And for most users, the area that needs changing here is either the payment terms. So a lot of people just change that to say invoices must be paid by the due date. And that means that whatever the day or the duration actually is, it'll still fit. And secondly, majority of people add their bank details to this. And that means that when they send their invoices out, they don't need to field a phone call from a customer saying, hey, I don't know where to put the money, which, I mean, it's a nice problem to have, but it just makes the transaction a bit simpler. So bank details absolutely can go in here. The final point is really only for Teams users. And if you're on Pro and you're considering upgrading, worth knowing. But I'm going to flick across to one of our help articles on the user access. So where we were talking before about adding additional users, if you're on a Teams plan, you've got a bit more control here. i.e., when you add somebody, you can actually say this person is an admin or a manager or a salesperson, and it defines what they can do within the app. So while we won't go right through this in detail because there's quite a lot of nuances to what people can and can't do, we'll make sure this link is available and linked to this video. And the most useful thing is this. If you go click here, there's a full complete breakdown of what each role can and can't do. So that's just a huge list, and you can clearly see what a salesperson can do versus a supervisor. Awesome. Any questions, as always, get in touch, and we look forward to chatting with you further. Thanks very much.